You want to see the definition of irony? This is from Reuters. Russian ventilators shipped to the United States made by firm under US sanctions. Ventilators delivered by Russia to the United States to help treat patients of the new coronavirus were manufactured by a Russian company that is under US sanctions, Russia's RBC Business Daily reported on Friday. I think it doesn't get more ironic than this, does it? A Russian military plane carrying the ventilators landed in New York on Wednesday after US President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke by the phone. They spoke by phone. It's collusion. It's collusion. I finally found it, everybody. Luke Harding, look! Luke Harding, look! Russian state television footage of the plane's unloading showed boxes of Aventa M ventilators, which are produced by the Ural Instrument Engineering Plant in the city of Chelyabinsk, which is 930 miles east of Moscow. UPZ is part of a holding company called Concern Radio Electronic Technologies, which itself is a unit of Russian state conglomerate Rostec. Ankret has been under US sanctions since July 2014, with US firms and nationals barred from doing business with it. In a statement on Wednesday, the US State Department said the United States had agreed to purchase medical supplies from Russia, but it made no mention of any company nor regarding sanctions. So they bought them. That's what they're... I'll cover it in a second. The United States initially began imposing economic sanctions on Russia in 2014 to punish it for the annexation of Crimea from Ukraine and its backing for pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. Additional rounds of sanctions have since been imposed on Moscow in response to its alleged meddling in the 2016 US presidential elections, of which there is no evidence for, and alleged involvement in the poisoning of former spy Sergei Skripal in Britain in 2018. Moscow denies both allegations. Of course it does. If it's going to poison somebody, why would it do it with a Russian-sounding nerve agent? These questions and more I've asked repeatedly on my channel. It continues. Russia's sovereign wealth fund, the Russian Direct Investment Fund, RDIF, which said it had paid for half of the shipment of medical equipment to the United States, were also added to the US sectoral sanctions in 2015. However, the Russian Foreign Ministry in Moscow said it paid for half the costs, with the other half picked up by Washington, although a Trump administration official later said the United States had picked up the whole tab, and RDIF declined to comment. So this is a perfect opportunity for some Russian propaganda to be spouted over the airways for them, and obviously they're taking the opportunity. You know, they're delivering ventilators and medical supplies to America from companies currently under US sanctions. So the United States are breaking their own sanctions. Are they going to sanction themselves for breaking their own sanctions? Is that the way it goes now? Interesting to see, won't it? Susie Dawson, I love this tweet. Incredible. Despite years of brutal American sanctions and media libel, Russia responds by sending the US ventilators / PPE. Americans, your family member's life could be saved because of the generosity of a country who you've been taught to hate. Think on it. Thought that was great. This, of course, is just a pattern for America. They've bought from a company that they're already under sanctions, and elsewhere, they're just stealing it. This is in the BBC. Coronavirus, US accused of piracy over mask, quote, confiscation. The US has been accused of redirecting 200,000 German-bound masks for its own use, in a move condemned as modern piracy. The local government in Berlin said the shipment of US-made masks was confiscated in Bangkok. The FFP2 masks, which were ordered by Berlin's police force, did not reach their destination. So they have just commandeered some masks that were on their way to Germany. And of course, this is another story. I've seen another story that they're actually stealing masks that are on the way to Canada as well. And you can see here face masks from China intended for France were hijacked from the US at the last minute. That's what they're doing around the world, just going and trying gathering up as many masks as they can, and to hell with the countries that have ordered them. That one story there, they paid 3 times the amount that the French paid for just as they were being loaded onto the plane. They decided to swoop in and pay 3 times the amount cash up front. That's how they commandeered these face masks. Obviously, we're talking about sanctions here, though. And while the US is breaking its own sanctions that it put on Russia, it's increasing sanctions elsewhere. It's disgusting, this is. The United States have offered Venezuela sanctions relief, though, for a power-sharing agreement. Interesting, the US has offered to lift crippling sanctions against Venezuela if its leaders agree to a power-sharing deal. Its leaders, BBC, leaders? There's only one leader in Venezuela, that's Maduro, the democratically elected leader. Under the US plan, Venezuela's left-wing president Nicolas Maduro would step aside and a transitional council would govern until fresh elections. In other words, they want to install their puppet Guaido. The US imposed its latest round of sweeping sanctions against Venezuela last year in an attempt to force Maduro to step down. However, Maduro has so far resisted all attempts to remove him from power. He is backed by Venezuela's military as well as Russia, China and Cuba. Really? Is that all he's backed by, BBC? He's backed by Venezuela's military as well as Russia, China and Cuba. He's also backed by the people of Venezuela, BBC. It's a democratic country and their elections are, in the words of Jimmy Carter, one of the best in the world. Forgot to put that in their title of their, well, in their story, totally. This obviously is on the back of the United States basically calling Maduro a narco-terrorist and saying that he's the head of some cocaine trafficking ring or something like that. Put a $15 million bounty on him being on whoever gives them information that will lead to his arrest. That deal, I have heard other people say this quite often, that deal that they've offered Venezuela is erringly similar to the deal that the United States offered the Grenadian government before they invaded Grenada. So there you go. According to the United States, the sanctions aren't working with Venezuela, so they've decided to label him a cocaine smuggler instead, and then send warships to the Caribbean to try and stop them. Do you see how this works? You know, sending warships now after this ultimatum, which was very similar, apparently, to the ultimatum that Grenada had before the US invaded. What was it, in the 80s, was it? This is ridiculous. Ridiculous. And this is who the United Kingdom are taking their orders from, remember. This is who we follow. Whatever they want, we do it. Our government, the United States, jump. Our government says, how high? How high? Would you like us to seize an Iranian tanker? No problem, President Trump. Who our media and government are basically saying is a a pawn of Vladimir Putin. Yeah, we've got no problem turning our Royal Navy into a bunch of pirates, though. No problem with that at all. Yeah, we'll turn our Royal Navy into pirates for you, America, because we are your lapdogs after all. And obviously we'll also just steal Venezuela's gold, 1.4 billion pounds of it that is in our vaults. Yeah, we won't let them have it because America said so. And we always do what America do because we're good lapdogs in the United Kingdom. All of this is going on, of course, while the United States increase the pressure on Iran. Iran are suffering terribly under the coronavirus outbreak, and the United States are increasing sanctions on them during this period. We need to pressure the US to drop all of these economic sanctions worldwide. That's what we need to do in the UK. We need to be pressuring them to drop the sanctions. Not happily go along with whatever they want like their good little bitch. I always thought I always thought it would take... I mean, we're going around the world just causing havoc, the Americans are, and we're happily going along with their coattails with these sanctions. Remember, sanctions are an act of war. It's siege warfare. The people who suffer under sanctions are the people, not the regime that you're trying to topple, the people. It's the Iranian people that are dying under these sanctions. It's the Venezuelan people who are dying under these sanctions. 40,000 of them, according to one study that was done. They don't report that in the media. We need to be pressuring them to drop these sanctions, not going along with them. The reason I think we should be dropping these sanctions is quite simple. I always said this when I was growing up as well, that we would carry on as a species fighting with each other and having these never-ending wars until we saw an existential threat, and we wouldn't actually unite as a planet and as a species until that existential threat was seen. I always thought it was going to be aliens. I always thought, yeah, until there's an alien invasion, the planet won't rise up. You know, they made a movie out of it, didn't they, with Independence Day? It was a good movie, and they ruined it by making a sequel 20 years later, or 30 years later or something. But it doesn't have to be aliens, because this virus could be it. This virus could be the existential threat that we need to actually unite and to put our petty differences aside and just to stop this nonsense war, because this virus doesn't care about borders. Doesn't. And this virus doesn't care about what history your countries have. It doesn't care about the colour of your skin. It doesn't care whether you're black, you're white, you're yellow, you're pink, you're brown, you're, what was it, a funny tinge that Labour politician said last year. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter any of it. It treats you the same. It doesn't matter what imaginary man in the sky you pray to. Doesn't matter whether you're Jewish, Catholic, Christian, Hindu. Doesn't matter. Treats you all the same. So why are we fighting each other and not coming together to fight this existential threat? And the worst thing about it is we could have prepared for this. We knew it was coming. Our scientists have been saying for years, as we get closer and closer to tipping point with climate change, and as the climate changes over the years, we will see an increase in viruses. We will see an increase in disease, not just from the viruses that are released from the ice caps melting, that have been buried for thousands of years there, but also with the extended seasons. It's more likely that viruses are going to morph and change and leap from species to species. We knew it was coming, and instead of investing at home in our health and protecting the nation, instead what we've been doing is following the United States around the world as they just wreak havoc and continue to try and destroy countries based on lies, and we happily go along with it. To quench the thirst of a military-industrial complex, which, quite frankly, is completely out of control, and seemingly has the UK by the proverbial balls, because we just do whatever they say, whatever they ask of us. In the US, we just, no problem. Turn our Royal Navy into pirates, steal an oil tanker, no problem. It's sick, it is. They're continuing to do all this throughout a pandemic, and we're continuing to go along with them. Sick, it really is. Donald Trump was asked about these sanctions recently. This is from Al Jazeera. He was asked in the press conference just yesterday. This is what he said. Take a listen.
That you stand with the people of Iran since the beginning of your presidency, and you'll continue. You said that in January you tweeted that you stand with the people of Iran since the beginning of your presidency, and you'll continue to stand with the people of Iran, given the fact they're so hard hit with coronavirus?
Oh, they're very hard hit.
But
They're
would you
very hard
consider
hit. In a lot of
easing-
ways, they're hard hit.
Yeah, so she's asked him, considering Iran have been pretty hard hit. Are you going to release the sanctions? And instead, what does he do? He brags about how hard they've been hit. Yeah, they've been really hard hit. Been hit with sanctions, been hit militarily. Now they've been hit with the virus. It's great. Listen.
Hit with their economy, with their military, and with, obviously, the virus. They're very hard hit.
Would you consider easing sanctions to allow medical supplies to get in?
Well, they haven't even asked us to do that.
But
Okay?
we know that sanctions hit the people, not the government.
You know what? They haven't even asked us to do that. If they want to meet, we'd love to meet, and we'd love to settle the whole thing out, but I doubt they'll be.
In other words, what he's saying there is, yeah, we don't mind releasing the sanctions. We'll have a chat about it. But first of all, they've got to knuckle under. And they've got to do whatever we bloody tell them to do, because we're the United States and we're the world's police. That's what he means there. They've been bragging to Iran. They've been shouting to Iran, coronavirus won't save you from sanctions. And there you hear it. They haven't asked us. We are following this rogue state around the world. In the United Kingdom, we're just clutching onto their coattails. All of my life, it's got worse and worse, actually. All of my life, we've been going into wars at the behest of the United States, and it's getting worse and worse, our subservience to them. It needs to stop. Don't you agree? They are committing acts of fascism around the world, and we are helping them. We are helping them. We need to drop all economic sanctions, not just we in the United Kingdom, although they, say we've got no sanctions on Iran for medical supplies, etc. But the whole planet, any economic sanctions, they all need to be dropped during this virus, and we need to come together and fight it, because this is an existential threat that will hurt us all. And if it's not this virus that kills us, it'll be the next one. The next one might be worse. The next one might have a 40% kill rate like the Ebola did. You just don't know. We're going to see them more and more in the coming years, and we need to prepare. And going around the world acting like thugs on behalf of a fascist state is not going to help anything, is it? This is an existential threat, and we've got to come together to defeat it.